Welcome to Yeshiva Daf, Shir sponsor Lui Nishmas, I'm Yaakov Shalom, Leah Basitzchok. We're holding Bometzia Daf Mvov. This was the Daf of the second day of Yom Tiv of the first days of Pesach. We're starting in the Bnei with base towards the end of the Amud. The Gemara tells us, Mei Siv Rav Sheshes. What are we talking about right now? We just learned the following. We learned in our Mishnah that there is a chaimish, a fifth, that a person has to pay when he redeems Truma. When a person eats Truma, he needs to pay an extra fifth. Said the Mishnah also by Trumas Meiser, which the Levi has to give, and also Trumas Meiser Shaldmai. What's Trumas Meiser Shaldmai? When you have a Truma, when you have an Amoritz, with Choishish the Amoritz not give Meiser, Rabbanu Ramachli have to do Meiser for an Amoritz. Trumas Meiser means you have to give the 10% that the Levi has to give to the Kohen. You also have to machmir by the Amoritz. Says in the Mishnah that you have to pay the 25% even on that case. Said the Gemara, one second, that's only the Rabbanan. You want to tell me the Rabbanan were machmir in their dinim like we're machmir in the Raisa? Said the Gemara, yes, that's Rameir. The Rameir holds we're machmir in the Rabbanan. And more of an example from Gittin. Now the Gemara is going to continue on with this discussion. Meisi Rav Sheshes, here's ask the question. Mechalim oisoi, were mechalel ma'isa sheni. What are mechalel? And what is the case that we're talking about? Ma'isa sheni shel d'mai, as Rashi says. It's ma'isa sheni. It's done with d'mai. We're talking about from the it's the same suffix. So here we're makel. Mechalim oisoi kesef al kesef, silver coin and silver coins. Nechoshes al nechoshes, copper coins are copper coins. Kesef al nechoshes, silver coins are copper coins. And then you take the copper coins and you redeem it for fruits. Then he needs to redeem the fruits. He needs to take the fruits. The fruits is not, you should not take the fruits that you redeem to Yerushalayim. He should redeem the fruits for money and take the money to Yerushalayim. The Chachamim say you take the fruits to Yerushalayim. So according to Rashi, Chachamim are more maker. Chachamim say you could take the fruits if you want to. If you want to, you can take the fruits or you redeem it again. Tosfos learns that the opposite. Rameir says you could redeem the fruits. Chachamim say you cannot redeem the fruits. And here is where Chachamim are more machmir than Rameir. And this is the example. Because the Shitasa, he learns this whole sugya. So what we try to prove is that Rameir is more machmir than Rabbanan. Here's an example. Rameir is more machmir than Rabbanan. Said the Gemara, Umi mechalim kesav on the choshes. You're saying over here you can mechalel silver and copper. Now we learned that you have two slime. You have two coins, one of chulin and one of ma'aser sheni. They got mixed up. What do? Maybe b'selamois you redeem the silver coin for mois which are copper. Wherever you have, I have your two coins. I don't know which one is ma'aser sheni. Here is my copper coins. Whatever silver coin is meiser, I'm redeeming the meiser on the copper coins. From the two silver coins, it takes a nicer one. Says this is the one. What's mechalo? I mean, right now you have two silver coins. One is chulin, one is meiser. I don't know which one is what. I say here, I'm taking these copper coins in exchange to the silver coin. Then it's meiser. I don't know which one. Now I take one of the silver coins, the better one, and I exchange the copper coins back into the silver coin. Why? Says the Gemara right? I allow you to redeem the silver coins to copper coins. In this case, doichak, I have no other choice because I don't know which one is which. Don't leave it that way. Bring it back to be silver. I want it to be silver, not copper. As well, earlier, copper gets ruined. You see, where mechalel, silver and copper, only have no choice. And here, and we're talking about the case of Trumas Meiser. We're talking about the case of Trumas Meiser Shildumai. Meiser Sheni Shildumai. We see that Rameir says you could do it. Rameir said you could go and redeem the silver and copper. And we said that by a regular coin, you can redeem it. A regular meiser sheni. You see, the Rameir is not machmir derabban like deraisa. That's the question. According to Rashi, what is we're bringing this question? We just said, according to Rameir, we're machmir by derabban like deraisa. So here we see that we're more makel by d'mai than regular coins. Says Tais, I don't say I can bring you several examples that we find that were more makel and demai than a regular meiser. This is the example you have to bring. And he brings other questions on Rashi. Tais goes here and says his shito. His shito in the sugi is, it's not their mir is machmir their rabbanon. Sometimes we're machmir, sometimes we're not. Their mir is more machmir than rabbanon. And here's the question according to Tais. According to Tais, we see over here, their mir is more makel than rabbanon. Because Rameir is the one who's saying that you can redeem the fruits, the coins, or if you want, yes, if not, not. And Rabbanan say that you have to redeem the fruits, the coins. That's a accurate taste. Let's take you to this pshat of Rashi. You're right. Rameir is more makel in redeeming the Ma'aseh Sheni. But by eating it is not makel. And the case of our Mishnah is eating. So by eating Rameir is no makel, is more machmer. In our case, we're talking about the person who ate Trumas Ma'aseh Shalmai, he has to pay a chaimish because he ate it. Eating, we're not makel, only makel in redemption. The Tanya, how do we know that? It says in the Brayso, Lo yitiru limkor dumai ela sitoim bilvad. We are allowed to sell dumai, meaning we allow a person to sell dumai without fixing it, only sit and sidl is a wholesaler. But Balabais needs to always do meiser before he sells the mine. We don't allow him to sell the mine because people are going to think if he's selling mine, it's probably his fruits. And if he's not on Maharitz, they will assume these fruits are okay. Chachamim say no. Also, not only a situn, but also Balabai, says Rashi, when he sells the midogas. Midogas means a very large amount. We don't sell small amounts, we sell large amounts, large quantities, like a wholesaler. Then you assume the person knows who buys it that this was never fixed, and he has to still fix it. So he could sell it. He could sell it to his friend. He could give it as a present. No problem. So Rameir is, according to Tais, is very clear. Rameir is more machmir than Rabbanon, and the Rameir is machmir that we're treating it. We assume it that wasn't fixed. Meisir Ravina asked the question: Lokech min anachtum, someone who buys from a nachtum, as Rashi says right away, that a nachtoim is like a sitrin. We'll see in a moment. Someone's buying from a baker. Ma'aser minacham l'tzoneres. He could do ma'aser. He's taking from a baker. He doesn't know if there was ma'aser done or not. So he treats it like the buy. He could do ma'aser from a hot bread to a cold bread. From a cold bread to hot bread. The way that we should point out later, cold bread means older bread and a hot bread means more fresh. Even if they're done in different shapes, you could do still ma'aser one each other. To do from a cold bread and a hot bread, mean from an older bread to a more fresh bread. That works like aviloi. How do you know if I do truma from a bad item to a good item? It's good. Is you won't have a chet. You won't sin if you give the best truma. is the best. But if you don't do the best, you will have a sin. If it doesn't work, so it's not a chet, it's not a sin. It wasn't effective. You see, whenever you do truma from one to another, whenever you do, even when you replace good to bad, it works. If you did the best, if you did truma the best, then it's perfect. Then you don't have a sin. If you did the worst, you have a sin, but it is effective. You could do truma from bad fruits and good fruits. So I understand why you're using cold bread or hot bread. Many different shapes. When you have different shapes, maybe it belongs to two different people. Maybe the baker bought these breads from two different Amarets. One Amaretz did do meiser, one did not do meiser. So if I take two different shapes of bread, I should assume it probably came from two different people. And if it came from two different people, maybe one did a meiser, one not. And if I want to do a meiser for one another, maybe I'm taking something which already was, the meiser was done, and I'm doing meiser something which not. It does not work. Meiser on something which already was fresh meiser does not become meiser. And you cannot do meiser on a fruit, on a bread which was already fresh. Here's the chiyuv is aptur, so it's not going to work. So that's what they want to bring a question. You see over here, he's asking a question. What's the question? That's Rameir. So Gemara is asking, Rameir over here is treating this ma'aseh sheni of the mind with such a kula. Maybe something's wrong. You see, he's makel by the man. So according to Rashi, the question is you see he's making with mine. The way Tosis explains, Rabban and Rabbi over there is more makler. So you see Ramir is more makel than Rabban. So now the Gemara calls it summarize the sugya. Rabbi Lazar Shafir Kakashli. What's Rabbi Lazar? Rabbi Lazar in the previous daf. Rabbi Lazar was that Rabbi Lazar asked, Omar Rava, right after the Mishnah we had, Omar Rava Kashta Rabbi Lazar. What was the question? Did Chachamim do Chumrah like Rabban? So Rabbi Lazar had a good question. Shmuel brings a raya. What was the answer that we learned in the previous daf? You bring a raya from get. You bring a raya from get to Meiser Sheni. To Chuvas Meiser. It's not a good answer. Why? The Kasha blows on Misa V'dei Shamayim. He asked a question from Chuvas Meiser. When someone eats it as Misa V'dei Shamayim, it's very, very bad. It's a bad punishment, but it's V'dei Shamayim. When Shali Shmuel Misa's Bezdin will bring a raya from get, which is a Misa's Bezdin if it's deraisa. Yeah, Rabbanim were more machmir in a get, which is a Misa's Bezdin when it's deraisa, then they're machmir Chuvas Meiser. How can you bring a raya from Gittin to Chuvas Meiser? Till Mashali Misa's Bezdin the Chamir. Maybe Misa's Bezdin more Chum. Right? If Sheish what is a Sheish? Is all we started today. Rav Sheish, the daf that we have. The Rav Sheish just came and asked from Chilul of Meiser Sheni. The Karmeinu Misu Meiser Sheish is left. What is the problem with Meiser Sheni? If you redeem Meiser Sheni in an improper way, you're even allowed. That's not even a Misu. You can't eat B'Sharecha if you don't redeem it properly. Says the Gemara, well, the mind, the moist Rav Sheish, what Rav Sheish already asked for Meiser Sheni, Rav Yosef Shafik HaMishal. Rav Yosef is answering well, because Rav Yosef brought a raya for Meiser Sheni. So Rav Yosef is answering based on what Rav Sheish asked. Hello, says the Gemara, but so Rav Yosef's answer, which Rav Yosef answered on Rav Sheish's, right after Rav Sheish brought the question from Michalim Kisav Nechoshes. And he said, that was his question from this Meiser Sheni. On Rav Yosef, pigeon is different than food, right? That's what Rav Yosef answered. And then we had a question of Ravino. Says Gemara, Ravino brought a question from the baker. Let's say, let me palter. What do you mean arrive from another part of the Mishnah? The next part of the Mishnah, Stace points out. The palter. Palter, that's what Rashi says. I mentioned before, the anachto. Palter is the wholesaler. Palter is a wholesaler. Nachtom is a baker. Is a local baker. So now, you buy from Palter. You have to do Meiser on each different shape, because you assume each shape came from a different person. So when you bring a rice, say, I don't understand. The baker, you can do Meiser from one tfus another tfus, from one shape another shape. And you bring a rice from an actor from the wholesaler, from a Palter, that's different. And the Meiser Chamimah. Palter mitrei Talta Gaver Zovim. And what's the answer? Palter, what's a Palter? Palter is the wholesaler. He buys from several different people. But a nachto, a baker, usually buys from the same source. He's a local baker. He's not buying from different sources. So that's why by him you can do meiser from one sheep to another. And as Tais points out, that's a machlekes there. Rameir is the one who says, I'm assuming that a baker probably got from the same source. Everything says I don't assume that. But the meiser, what comes out over here, Rameir really is always machmir, except when you have a reason to be maker. So that's why it's not a question of Ravina. Shmuel, that he brought an answer from Gittin to Chuvas Meiser, it is a good answer. He asked before, it's not a good answer. That's Misa V'dei Shamayim, that's Misa V'dei Bezdin, Shem Misa Boilam. Misa is the same. You bring a raya, the Rameir is Machmir by Misa, he's Machmir one Misa, Machmir the other Misa, so it's a good indication. So the Gemara just basically, according to the end of the Gemara wanted to prove that Rameir is, do we find the Rameir is Machmir D'Rabbanan? The Gemara says yes, we find Rameir is Machmir D'Rabbanan. Why is he not Machmir by D'mai? He's not Machmir by Chuvas Meiser, by Meiser Sheni of D'mai. He's not Machmir by Sheni of D'mai, only in a pidyon. But he is Machmir by food. Why is he not Machmir when you're taking from a baker? Because he assumed the baker car from the same source. So the Mishnah. The following things do not have or know. Din or know does not apply to them. Ha'avodim ve'ashtor avodim, slaves. If a person sells a slave for, he overcharges or undercharges. Ve'ashtor is selling a document. Ve'akakor is selling land. Ve'agdesh is selling entish. Einem teshlum, be careful, there's no double if you steal it. There's no 4 and 5 when you steal an animal and you shecht it. In a regular gun, you have to pay 4 or 5 times if it's a sheep or an ox, depends. If it was taken from him, he doesn't do a shvuah that he was onus. He was not Peshiach, sorry. And the Shavasachar doesn't pay if you find out it was stolen. In all these cases, you don't have it. Rav Shimon says, in that from Vovun base, if he's responsible for it, meaning Kochim, that he's responsible to bring the base of Mikdash, there is Oino because he's responsible for it. If he just gave an animal, and that animal is not his responsibility. Rashi says, it says a ray, the difference between a ray alai oila and a ray zu oila. Ray oila, I'm responsible for bringing oil to base of Mikdash. A ray zu oila, this animal is oila, but if this animal gets lost, I'm not responsible. So then Ein Lemoino. Rabbi Yehuda also is selling a Sefer Torah, an animal or a jewel. Ein Lemoino, people sell for overcharges, and one can explain. Disagree. He said only the list that we mentioned in our Mishnah. So how do we know all this? So it says you have to sell or buy from your friend. It has to be something which is movable, exchanges hands. We take away land which is stationary, it doesn't move. You exclude avodim, slaves, they are compared to karka. If to sell something, you're selling an item, you're actually selling the item itself. Shtar itself is not sold. You're not selling the actual shtar. You're just selling what's a shtar. Shtar is a document. You're selling the underlying value of the document, not the document itself. If you're selling a shtar to a person who sells perfume, and he uses the shtar to cover the perfume, so he's actually using the shtar as an item, not as a document. Yesh lemoino, right? So there is a no. So more pshito, what's a chiddush? Of course, why? Then you're selling the shtar. Like we saw before in the previous daf, there's no ino for a pruto. Pruto is such a small amount, there's no ino for that. Usually a shtar, the actual paper, is worth a pruto. Kavash rolan, yes, no prutos. There's a no prutos. Here, very important discussion that we're showing him is, can you sell a shtar? I mean, we could sell a shtar, but can you sell shtar midiraisa? Only midirabanan. It's a big machlekes that we're showing him. So if you hold you can sell shtar midiraisa, that's fine. If you hold you can sell shtar only midirabanan, the question is, oino is deraisa. So how does the Torah exclude a shtar? So that states over here comes with two different answers. We're not talking really about a shtar, we're talking about mivul baal peh that connected to a shtar. It is a problem, according to the Rishonim that hold, that mechira shtar is only derabanan. So more Ekdeshus, I didn't know that when you sell Ekdesh, there's no oino. Omakoi Achiv V'lo Ekdesh. Still the pasuk Achiv, only a brother, not Ekdesh. Matkil Rabbi Merel Kolech Dichtiv Yodo Mamshu. You want to tell me Yodo means miyad liyad, from hand to hand, it has to be movable? And that's where you learn to exclude karka, to exclude a stationary item. It says he conquered his whole land from his hand. The land was in his hand literally. Ella, what do you mean yodo? It means his possession. Maybe it should be possession. You should say there is or no, but of course. Says when it says yodo, doesn't mean the actual hand. Tanya, we learned. You find the gneva by a person's hand, by the shomer. Of his hand. Gago is roof. Chatzeir is courtyard. The karfifoi, which is an opening in front of the house. Right? It says imotze. So you learn that it's not only his hand, literally, it's talking about other possession, other issues too. Only because you have the extra imotze. Yoda means yoda. So you see the yoda means yoda. The two time you know you have a brayso of a nosom yodo. You give a get in the yad of a isho. Ain't lielo yodo. That's off her hand. Gag or her roof. Chatzeir or courtyard. Karfipa in front of the house. Minayin tomud loyim and nosom nikom. It says you can give it any way. Time of the kosach one of nosom because he says he has to give it. Halava chavaminu kolecha dechtiv yodo mamish. When it says yodo, it means his hand. It means her hand. You have to put it in the hand. So you see, when the Torah says yoda, it means yoda. Ella says the one called yoda mamishu. Yoda means hand. V'shani also the lake meaning, and that's how the Or Chaim HaKadosh says. The word yad means hand. If I have no other choice, and the only way to explain Yoda is B'Shusay, I say B'Shusay. But if I have a choice, I will never say that Yoda means B'Shusay. So as long as you mean literal, I mean literal. So you go back to our sugya. Oh, no, it says Miyodoy, it means literal. I come to exclude Karka. Says the Gemara, Rav Zera asked a question. What about a rental? Is there a no there or not? Memkar machmono of loiskir. The pasuk says memkar means a sale, and not something which you're renting. Or maybe even by renting. Does it say you're selling forever? Memkar stomach some sale. Renting is a sale, a temporary sale. It's considered to be a sale for a temporary amount of time. So you're big Yeshayit that renting is considered to be a sale, at least for that time. Rav asked the question. When you have wheat and you put it into the land, what's the thing? What's the question? Putting in the land in the ground is like putting it into a vessel. There's a no. It's not considered to be part of the ground. Or maybe you say they're bottled to the karka. So, right? That's the question of the Gemara. Rashi says right away, not talk about that it has roots. It's still in the ground without growing roots yet. He says the Gemara. He said, the person says, Reuven sells to Shimon, so I'm selling you the wheat that's over here. I put there six seeds. The Eidim said they put only 5. Question, yeah, but no, it's 5 instead of 6. Anything that you measure, or that you weigh, or that you count, even less than Rashi learns the pshat is, because if I told you a specific amount, I want to buy 6, I mean 6, you can't do less. Anything less than that is a mekatos. So, look at Rashi. Rashi says, the chayzer the mekatosu. That behed the pirish b'cheskas ken ve'enuken. Kvad she'mekatosu afilu botilu agavara chayzer. It's mekatos. We'll learn the next daf. Mekatos works anyway. And this opens the Rishonim learn different ways. Why, when you have mido minyan and mishkal, you don't have a no. Rashi learns little pshat is he means this amount. Anything different is a mekatos. Reuben sold Shimon. He says, I put in this place enough wheat. Did not put enough. And we find out that what is the amount to put? It's 6. And he put only 5. Is there a no there or not? Toz explains, again, mekatos. I told you to put enough. You can put enough. He says, I think this land 5 is enough. And we bring experts that say 6 is enough. So it's already no. Kebad should be carried as putting into a vessel. The Eshlo know because it's like it's movable. It's bought to the karka, and by karka there's no. So that's question number 1 when you put it into the ground. Question number 2. Do you do shvu and they were not? The thing is you don't do shvu on karka. Kebad is like as if it's in a vessel. Finish boim and you do shvu because it's considered to be movable. Or deal but clean is bottled to the land, and the third question, this is in Yon Diyayim. Right? This daf was learned on the second day of Yom Tov, second day of Pesach. Tetzai Nisan, that's when we did the Korban Omer. So now it comes in Yon Diyayim. Omer Matiron and Omer Matiron. Does the Omer allow you, what's the din by Omer? When you bring the Korban Omer, you're allowed to eat all the Tvuah that grew in the past year. Right? Because Tvuah that grew, especially Eretz Yisrael, discussion, the place keep the Pasha is also Chutzlarts. You're now allowed to eat Chodosh, you're now allowed to eat new grain until the day of Tetzai Nisan or the Korban Omer. So you have a question over here is, does the Korban Omer matter these wheat that was in the ground? It says, well, what do you mean? Hey Chidami, if it grew roots, Tanino, we learned. If the loy ashush Tanino, if it grew roots, we also learned. What does it mean? The nan imishush koydem if it grew before the Omer Matir, the Omer does allow it. If that, you have to wait for the next Omer. It says Rashi, what's trying to think more? The word started in the stool, we talk about what grew later. Not what's right now here. What grew from what's going. So more very simple. If already the growth started before the Omer is not to this plant. If the growth did not start, there's no roots that grew. So then you have to wait for the next Omer. It's a new Tvuah, the next year. So well, let's read the Chazdinu Vezarinu Koinen Loim. Talk about that he planted it he harvested and then planted it before the Omer. This thing, the actual thing that he cut from the ground, he went and he put it into the ground. So on, let's say Yudal Nisan, he had wheat in his hand. He harvested wheat, he has wheat in his hand. Pashtas, what will happen when the Omer comes at Zayin Nisan? He'll be able to eat it. But he put this wheat into the ground. And there's no shirash, there's no roots. And it passed through them. And there was no shirashim that came. Says the one can we take it, eat it? It's like putting it, it's like sitting in a vessel. So the Omer is allowing it. Visharin Omer, but Tlino Agavar, maybe now it's bottom of the karka, it's good to be part of the land, and the Omer is not matir the land. Look at what Rashi says, it's like a land. And that's where Omer does not matir it. So in other words, we just had 3 questions of the Gemara. When I have a grain that I put into the ground, it's not growing, it's just sitting in the ground right now. Is this considered to be out of the ground, sitting in a vessel, or is bottled to the ground? So we asked the question number 1 regarding Oinor, question number 2 regarding Shvur, and question number 3 regarding Omer. When Omer you have here inside the ground, does Omer matter? You're allowed to eat these wheat, or because it's in the ground, it's bottled to the ground, and therefore Omer is not matter. And the one concludes and says, Teikoi, Pashas, all 3 questions, when I'm putting the Tvua into the ground, is it bottled to the ground or not?